As you can see, I'm kind of in a cool, shaded valley that is particularly damp and moist. And as I almost fall off the tree here, you can see it's really muddy and wet and shady. But we can see over here, how many reishi mushrooms can you see? There's definitely some there. And then under here, there's some more. Come around another angle, you can see a few more. And you can see even under here, there's more. It's too dark, it's not really showing up, but hopefully, yeah, you can see it there. There's another one, and you can see these are all mature as well. They've all reached the spore stage. As you can see, they have the little brown dust on top. But to challenge you, look up into these trees and see if you can spot the reishi mushrooms. And look over here and see if you can spot even more reishi mushrooms. I'm just going to hold the shot for a second and see if you'll be able to see them. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit. See it now? Did you see it before? Probably not. And there's another one right here, which I'm trying to bring it into zoom. It's a little different. It's yeah, I can't really get it, but we'll get up there in a second. So one thing you definitely want to train yourself on is to be able to look through brush like this and to be able to spot reishi mushrooms, like the one that's hiding behind these trees. But also the main benefit is that you want to come out and try to scope out your spots before all of this greenery comes out, because as you can see, it's going to make hunting the mushrooms quite a bit more challenging. As you can see, just in this simple area, there's quite a few mushrooms, but if you were just walking by, you'd never really know. So the two main points I want to drive home in this video is that number one, you can typically find reishi mushrooms in cool, damp, moist areas that are shaded, like this, also on fallen trees. And all of these trees which are fallen down here are hemlocks. And even this one up on the hill there is also a dead hemlock, which indicates that these are reishi, or they're Ganoderma tsugae. Whereas if they were growing on hardwood, say oak or maple or plum even, it would be Ganoderma lucidum. But they're all great, and they all have different, or they all have great medicinal value, tonic value, etc. But they're just slightly different because they grow on different trees. So again, I'm going to try to come in under here and see if we can spot the mushroom there. You see it? Now I wonder if you see it now when we zoom out. Probably not. But it's definitely there, and I spotted it as I was coming up the hill. So again, up here, we even have more on the tree there, which can prove a little bit dangerous to get to, but that's part of the fun. So again, it's really where you want to look for mushrooms. That's typically where you find them. I'm doing this video in southwest or southeast Kentucky, about an hour south of Lexington. So that's the kind of the ecosystem and the climate that I'm in, and really where I found it. And you'll notice this similar trend with all the spots that we visit today: dark, cool, shady, moist. And then also on fallen hemlock trees, which indicates that it's Ganoderma tsugae. Alright, so after navigating countless spider webs, after slicing my ankle on some thorns, I was able to harvest 5 really nice specimens. You can see this one here. You can see where I touched it, where it got a little wet. The spores are starting to come off. You can see the underside. It's pretty perfect. So that's the first one. Second one, again, it got a little messed up from where I touched it and it got wet, but looks perfect on the other side. Totally mature specimen. This guy here, as you can see, is mature as well, but you can see little something on the bottom where maybe something ate it or took a bite out of it, but really didn't get too far. Second specimen, again, you can see perfect, mature. And on the bottom, just again where there's a little bite out of it by some organism, a beetle perhaps, And then lastly, this one here is just beautiful. Totally, you know, the reishi that we all know and love, that kind of looks like an alien, kind of looks like a kidney, kind of looks like a lung, an ear, a heart, brain. You can see the shininess under there. You can see my hands have spores all over them. And then this bottom underside was totally white and perfect before I found it, but I touched it, picking it and handling it, and you can see the little brown spots. But these are really perfect, ideal, perfectly ripe specimens that are really going to be nice and are a little bit better than the ones we found before this, where they had some little bit of bug infestation. But these are really just ideal, picture perfect specimens that have a really unique, amazing reishi aroma. They have the nice spores, and then you can see the nice red, orange, and yellow color that we all know and love about reishi. Now, for some of these others that got a little bit eaten, probably it was maybe some sort of bug that thought it was going to be able to eat the reishi, but then once it got a taste of the triterpenes and the polysaccharides and the bitter chemicals that reishi is using to protect itself, it obviously gave up, and the reishi was able to survive and reproduce, which is really what it's trying to do. So by this organism being reishi having to fight off dampness, mold, moisture, bugs, insects, diseases, all of these things, it's building up an immune system. It's building up an ability to adapt to a wide range of temperatures, humidity, rain, dryness, etc. It's having to adapt and survive through all of that. So when we take it in, we're able to sort of confer that ability to ourselves, hence the term adaptogen, hence the term immune tonic or tonic herb, meaning the reishi had to survive and adapt. So then when we take that in, we're able to have that similar property as well. Also, the reishi is able to protect itself through the polysaccharides, the triterpenes, the ganoderic acids, all these things which we know have great tonic and medicinal value. So now behind me there's another huge specimen, probably another 5 or so specimens up there, but it's going to be a little bit more of a trek to get to it, so I'm going to check that out and see what I can do. This is another spot that I scoped out about a month ago, and as you can see, these mushrooms are pretty much perfect. You can see the brown dust on top, which would indicate that they are actually mature and that they've spored. And that brown dust of those spores is basically the sperm or the reproductive essence of the reishi, which indicates that it's gone to maturity. So as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you see these little nubs here coming out of the knobs or nubs, whatever you want to call them, coming out of the tree. These are basically going to be even more growth coming out of this tree. And then there's even a few more down here at the bottom on the roots. There's one here that you can see, which looks like it's seen better days. And then again, you can see this brown knob coming out of the tree. It's going to be more reishi. And then down here, you can see these guys. And this one, as you can see, has that typical reishi shine. And then there's another one hidden down here, which has, again, that nice reishi shine, which is really where the name Ganoderma lucidum comes from. It really means like shiny skin, which is really what this mushroom has going on when you find it in the wild state. And you'll see one over here that really just didn't quite make it. Then you'll see another spot right here where there's a little bit of white. That's where I picked one about a month ago. So what you want to look for is, obviously you want to look at the underside of the reishi, which you can see there, it's white. And there's some bugs, but all in all it looks pretty good. There might be some minor infestation from beetles, because you can see over here it looks like it's been eaten away, but I won't really know until I take it off the tree and take it home and get a better idea. But this is kind of what you have to look out for when you're finding reishi. Is number one, if you find it too early, it's not going to be mature. It's still going to be good. It's still going to have medicinal properties, but it's not going to have the spores. It's not going to be, a mature organism. But if you find it too late, it can be infested and can be eaten by beetles and bugs. So you kind of have to find this really sweet spot as far as timing your harvest at the right time if you can. Alright, so now I'm going to harvest these mature specimens. And obviously anytime you're coming into the woods, if you've scoped out your spot, you know a good idea as far as what you're going to be harvesting. It's a good idea to bring some bags, especially on a day like today where I have 7 or 8 different spots that are known to going to be having mature fruiting bodies. So again, a bag is a good idea. So basically all you need to do to harvest it, if you just want to do it ultra basic, just literally grab it by the stem and kind of just give it a tug. And sometimes they'll come off really easy, other times you'll have to give it a little bit more of a tug. As you can see, there's like an ant crawling on this, but the smell on this is ridiculous, and there are indeed lots of little beetles crawling on this, so there may be some infestation on this. I'm not sure. We won't know until we get it home, but this is a really nice looking specimen with the spores on it. And what I'll do when we'll get it home is obviously dehydrate it, which I'll show you how to do later, and you know, also cut off this little part because it just contains like tree bark and you don't really need to consume that. So again, you know, if there's bugs, it's gonna happen. It's part of the process. It's part of pulling products from nature, and it's really as organic and as natural and as raw as you could possibly get. So if you're a little freaked out by the insects, just keep in mind it's kind of part of the process, because you know they want to live too. They want to be, you know, nourished as well. They want to have a habitat. So obviously, for some reason they're choosing reishi, which you can see is like little beetles crawling all over this one. So this one may in fact be very infested, but you know, at the end of the day, once we get it home, we'll know for sure. So yeah, that's really all you need to do to harvest it. If you wanted to be super proper, you could like bring a knife and cut it off. But basically I'm just going to take these mature specimens, put them in my bag, and then get on to the next site. Alright, so here we are at our third location for the reishi harvest. Can you spot the reishi mushrooms? Which tree is it on? Perhaps this one? That is a hemlock, which is absolutely covered. This is just one side that we can see, but on the other side I know there's even more, and you can see they're pretty sizable as well. If I zoom in, there's going to be a nice substantial harvest from this tree. But first we're going to have to get across this creek, up this hill, and then over here to finally harvest these will be hopefully mature and perfect specimens. Alright, so here's really the pinnacle of the day. The absolute biggest harvest so far. You can see from a distance this tree is just covered on all sides. Not only that, but these are really sizable specimens, and obviously I had to hike through dubious terrain, hike across the creek, but here I was able to find these amazing specimens. Alright, so as I mentioned earlier, you know, if you pick them too early, they're not necessarily going to be quite as potent, they're not going to be as ripe, but you want to wait till they've obviously, you know, spored like this. But the other thing is that you have nature to compete with. You have beetles. You have specifically this beetle here. You can see it in its small state there, and you can see it in its mature state right there. Hopefully, I'll try to lift this up. Maybe you can get in there and see it. You can see the beetle in there. But if you look underneath these mushrooms, you'll see little, like, gooey little bits hanging from them. See that there? See that there? Which some of them are fine, some of them are not, but you can see there's little guys hanging out on top of these. So this area is pretty likely going to be infested, which is kind of cool because if you think about it, like, what beetle lives on reishi mushroom? Like, that's got to be kind of a cool beetle if you ask me. So I'm not too upset. It's kind of a bummer because these are such huge specimens. They're so large, but you know, we've already made quite a bit of a harvest today, and I guess the beetles are just gonna go ahead and have the rest of these. And you know, like this guy here is probably, you can see my hand up next to it. This mushroom is probably 16 inches or so across, but is now gonna be a beetle haven, or a little beetle hotel for the rest of the season. So that's a really important thing to keep an eye out, and just another sort of constraint or limitation for the reishi harvest season. You'll see even again under here, you'll see the little gooey sac thing hanging out by the beetle. That's again indicating that there's definitely an infestation, and you don't really want to consume these. I mean, I guess you could if you want to be really gutsy, but I don't recommend it, and I don't really want to unless you want to, you particularly like beetle tea. So yeah, this was the biggest one of the day and probably of the season, but as you can see, just a little bit too late, maybe a couple weeks too late on these guys, but that's nature. That's what happens. It's okay. I already have a bag full or 2 bags full of other mushrooms to take home, so that's it's fine with me. Alright, so here we are at our 4th location for the reishi mushroom harvest. Let me see if you can spot where they are through this dense brush. If you guessed right there, then you are correct. As you can see, it's a pretty significant harvest that we're going to have just from this area. It looks like there's some beautiful mushrooms over there. But the reason why I'm showing you this zoomed out view, and why I'll sort of pan you around to see kind of what we're dealing with, is to show you how easily you could just walk right past that. Walk right past those mushrooms and not even realize what you just walked past. Which is why I've talked about throughout these videos is basically coming out about a month early and kind of scoping out where you're going to harvest, because like, as you can see through all this greenery, it's a lot harder to spot these brown mushrooms. And we're right at the end of May, and in this part of the year, or this part of the country, that's really the time for harvest, meaning like early summer, early June at the absolute latest, and late May. So get out and scope, in April, late April, and then that's what I did this year. And again, I was able to scope out all these different spots. So I'm gonna make my way down through the brush here, and we'll see what we can do. As you can see, again, we have this stream here, we have the creek, we have the shade, we have the dampness and the coolness for the right conditions for this to grow. And you can hear the stream here, which is just a really nice sound, which I'm sure the mushrooms love. So here we are over at the actual location, and as you can see, these guys are mature and ripe and looking almost perfect. There's like a little spider web next to it, but that's gonna happen. But as you can see here, there's dust on the leaves, there's dust all over the trees, and there's dust on the mushrooms, which again, it's not dust, it's actually the spores or the reproductive essence of the mushrooms. So as we can see here, we probably have about a dozen different mature, beautiful specimens which we're going to harvest from this tree. Alright, so I'm right here at the first specimen. I'm going to go ahead and harvest this and just pull it off, and look at that. That is perfect, beautiful, ripe, mature reishi mushroom, full of spores and free of blemishes. So I'm going to set that down on the tree face down and pick this guy here. Came right off, but as you can see, there's some ants and other organisms living on the inside of the tree, but they have not infected the actual mushroom, which is a good sign. But as you can see, it's just tree bark, which I'm going to be taking off later on. But as you can see, I got spores all over my hands. But this guy here, these big ones here, this is going to be really the the fun one to do. But as you can see, there's still this guy here, and then even here. There's still a few more even coming out. And this is even still, you know, this one mushroom is putting out 2 different ones. This guy here is big, and this one over here is again putting out 2. And this one over here, 2 side by side. And then again, 3 side by side right there. So as you can see, these guys are perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and move this spider web and grab this other one. Try to not get the tree bark again and pull it up. And this one is perfect as well. So I'm gonna set this down. Now we already have 3 beautiful specimens. And I'm gonna shut the camera off now and go ahead and just harvest the rest of these. Alright, so this is really what we look forward to all year long while we do the planning, the research, and the preparation, is to harvest beautiful specimens just like this. So I guess I'll start off with this guy here and just kind of wiggle it, get it off. Came right off. I'll peel off the excess tree bark and the roots, and we have this perfect, beautiful specimen with a spider as well, which is dead already. So there's that one. We're going to set that down. Now for the other big ones, we're going to just kind of wiggle this off. And there it is. Again, perfect, beautiful. Came with a little beetle on my hand. And now this is the big one here. And there's a ladybug or something hanging out on top of it, which is typical. You might find that. So we'll pick that off. There it is. And this one again, perfect. I'll get the beetle or spider off of there as well. And this one again, perfect shape, spores all over the place, beautiful underside, free of any infestation. Set it down with the rest. Now, I probably will leave a few of these just for the tree and just for the reproduction and just for the environment. But as you can see, even though I've harvested a lot, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4, 5, 6 other little mushrooms that are just starting to come out and just starting to produce their fruiting bodies. So a couple things I want to point out is that once you've found a spot that produces mushrooms, come back every single year, because it's going to keep producing mushrooms. This isn't just a once-off kind of deal where you just find it and oh, it was fun for that year. This is something that can keep putting out mushrooms for quite a long time. I've known areas that have put them out for at least 10 plus years. A friend of mine had a tree in his yard, and it just kept growing reishi mushrooms off the roots for a really long time, and it still is to this day. So once you find a spot like this, keep coming back every year about the same time and scope it out, because you're just going to have consistent supply of reishi mushrooms, wild from the forest, from your local ecosystem. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pick the rest of these, but one last thing is, right here you'll see the branch is actually growing. It's still growing out, but the mushroom's growing around it. That'll happen. If there's plants growing around here, the mushrooms will just grow right through them or grow right around them. Or if there's like a branch or roots or a tree branch, it's just going to grow right through them. That's normal. That happens. You can sort of work around it. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about for this section. I'm going to pick the rest of these, put them in the bag, and then head over to the remainder of our scoped out territories for this reishi harvest. Alright, so here we are at our, what is it, 4th or 5th location for the harvest. And as you can see, pretty decent selection of mushrooms here. You can see they actually look a little bit different. They're a little bit smaller, a little bit different shape. But you can see these guys, these beetles here, are starting to make a home. And these are probably the little babies that will later try to infest and nest in these mushrooms. But I'm not, this might be a hemlock. I'm not totally sure from the bark. It's hard to tell because it's covered from moss, but these are likely Ganoderma tsugae as well. they could be lucidum. It's hard to really tell. But as you can see, this guy here, I mean, this is the quintessential reishi mushroom. I mean, it doesn't really get much more picture perfect than this. And again, perfect on the underside, and just a beautiful specimen. So we'll set it there, and we'll harvest these guys because they are mature. They have already released their spores. They just happen to be a little bit smaller, but you can see this one's pretty well fixed on there, so I'll just leave it because it doesn't seem like it really wants to come off. This one, it's got beetles. May just leave that, but you can see it has like a beautiful shiny exterior. This one again here, picture perfect reishi, comes right off. Perfect underside, bright orange color. That one's coming home as well. This guy here again, another great specimen. Check the underside, looks decent. Go ahead and grab that. Grab a little moss too while we're at it. And again, perfect, beautiful specimen. Not quite as sizable or huge as the previous harvest, but definitely still pretty awesome. And these just look a little bit different. It may even have a slightly different personality than some of the other ones. But again, one important characteristic I want to point out is, again, you see the creek, you see the greenery, you see the shade. It's cool, it's shady, it's moist, it's damp. And again, there's a fallen tree, which probably hemlock, with these beautiful reishi specimens on there. So, you know, it's even tempting to pick this guy because it's just kind of a cool ornament. But I'll go ahead and leave it on this tree. And I'll leave this one here just because the beetles have already kind of scoped it out. And then that one at the bottom looks like it could have some bugs on it as well. So just go ahead and walk away with these 3 perfect specimens and get on to our next site.